Hey guys, it's Mew2king, and it's been quite a while since my last stage list video, and now, just slightly over a year later, I'm back with another one. Now I'm going to be telling you which stages I believe should be legal as starters, counter picks, and other types of information that I will also reveal in the video. Before we go on, I do want to mention to click subscribe and hit the bell icon right next to subscribe if you want to stay notified of more videos. That said, let's get right into it. First, I'm going to talk about the 5 starters that are legal at almost every tournament, starting with Battlefield. So, Battlefield is considered an average-sized stage, except for the ceiling, which is bigger than usual. The majority of stages in the game, meaning about half of them, I'd say, have a 180-size ceiling, such as Final Destination. Battlefield, however, but not Small Battlefield is also 180. Battlefield, however, has a 192 ceiling, one of the highest stages in the game. In fact, it's tied for second highest, only surpassed by Town City's ceiling. So it is a stage where it is difficult to kill off the top unless you're already starting from a platform position. This stage has 3 platforms, and it's pretty much a staple stage that you see at pretty much any tournaments in almost any Smash game outside of games like 64, which have Dreamland 64, which is just like Battlefield anyway. I would actually like to say that this stage can be more campy than most people think, in the sense that some characters like Toon Link can jump around with the projectiles and jumping around to evade. Snake can do the same thing, but something that every character can do on stages where you can hide under platforms, even stages like Smashville, which I'll talk about later, is you can get a lead and then hide under the platform, and then you can keep camping on it. So I'm going to make a note of this later because this is going to give a comparison to how this differs from Yoshi's story, which is something I'll explain more later in the video. The next stage is Final Destination. Final Destination is just a flat stage with a 180 ceiling, which is good for killing people off the top, but it's pretty much a standard average stage that you'd expect with no platforms. Now, another thing that most people might not think about when they think of Final Destination is that no platforms actually means that when you're cornered, you don't really have as much room to escape, and since there's no platforms, it's easier to make a full hop approach to catch people doing projectile camping, which in my personal opinion makes this stage more aggressive than the other platform stages. Now moving on to Town City as the third stage. Town and City is very unique in the sense that it is the smallest ledge to blast zone in the game, but also the highest ceiling in the game. That makes it very unique from the other stages. Combine this with the fact that the platform layouts are very unique as well in various forms of the stage, and this is a very interesting stage by comparison to many of the others. If you want to survive upwards hits but kill people early off of the side, such as Roy, for example, who likes to kill off the side with moves like his side B and forward smashes, but you want to survive characters who like to kill you upwards, then Town and City might be a good pick. Pokemon Stadium 2 is arguably the most commonly picked stage in tournaments, often agreed upon by many players to start on, and frequently picked back and forth regardless of who wins or loses the match. This is the widest stage in the game, also tied for a 180 ceiling. The platforms are actually a little bit higher than Battlefield, which actually does change certain things. For example, Pyra can't full hop onto the platform without air dodging down, but she can full hop onto the side platforms of Battlefield, Small Battlefield. Interesting enough, Pokemon Stadium 1 is not like that. Pokemon Stadium 1's platforms is just like Battlefield. But Pokemon Stadium 2 is the widest stage in the game. Very good for just characters who don't have great recovery or characters who want to kill you upwards. But also can be pretty good for camping as well. But this is a stage that's pretty much here to stay because the community has shown time and time again that they just like it. It's pretty much not going anywhere. And the last stage to talk about in the starters is Smashville. Smashville is a very small stage where you can get your opponent off stage quite easily. However, I do also want to note that even though it is a very tiny stage, I also want to say that I believe that it is campier than most stages in the sense that some characters can camp on the side with using the platform to stop other characters' full hop approaches. Some characters rely on their full hop approach in order to approach characters and avoid their projectiles. But on Town City, if their full hop is too high, then they can't start their rising aerial on the way down, which means they would be landing on the platforms. This will limit their approaches to somebody who gets a lead and tries to camp them with projectiles. Now, the matches don't really go to time in these things, but I just wanted to mention it's not quite as aggressive as the smallest size would make you think. Another interesting thing about Town City is the ledge to blast zone seems kind of average-ish, more or less. It's not like particularly super close. Like Town City's ledge to blast zone is much smaller than Smashville's ledge to blast zone, for example. And if we're talking about ceiling height, it is a 190 ceiling, so just only slightly different than Battlefield's, for example, but still much higher than most stages, which means it's difficult to kill somebody in the sky on this stage. Next, I will talk about two stages that are often in counter picks, which I believe could arguably be in starters. The first of these stages is Yoshi's story. Now, I want to mention that some people say, oh, well, there's triplats and triplats, but I argue that these are extremely different stages, and with a lot of my characters, I really like one stage but then dislike the other or vice versa. Yoshi's story has a 180 ceiling instead of a 192 ceiling, which makes it much easier to get kills in the sky. Generally, you can pick Battlefield if you want to survive in the sky, but generally you pick Yoshi's story if you want to be able to kill them in the sky. In addition to that, the main stage is very significantly smaller than Battlefield's stage, and unlike Smashville, which is about the same size on the main stage, because of the way the platforms are laid out on Yoshi's story, being higher and wider apart than Battlefield, Yoshi's story is kind of like an FD type of stage in the sense that a lot of the fights you can just jump in at your opponent and bring the fight to them immediately. You can't really camp somebody or time them out on this stage. Besides the platform layout making it a much more aggressive stage than Battlefield, I'd also like to add that it has walls, which are another very unique feature to it because some characters can actually have a useful wall jump where they would pick a stage like this in order to use that for their recovery. I believe that how aggressive this stage is, combined with how very significantly different from Battlefield this stage is, means that not only should it be legal, I believe it should be a starter, arguably. I know that could be a controversial take, but I do think that if we had 7 starters instead of 5 and did 1-2-2-1 striking, Yoshi's story would be one of those 7 starters. The other stage, which is often a counter pick, but in my opinion could be one of the 7 starters if we use a 7 starter system, is Lilac Cruise. Lilac Cruise is a very unique stage in its layout with 3 platforms of different heights, a slanted surface, the smallest ledge to blast zone in the game, roughly tied of Town City more or less, and a ceiling of 180. When you combine the fact that this is pretty much a average sized stage, kind of like a Final Destination, but with smaller ledge to blast zone and a very unique platform layout, but one that you cannot really camp on, I believe that Lilac Cruise, with its unique layout and the properties it brings, should it definitely be legal, but I also think it could be one of the 7 stars. One thing that many people talk about for both Yoshi's story and Lilac is the fact that they have slanted surfaces, but I really just don't think that matters. That's literally part of the stages being different. Sometimes that benefits a character and sometimes that hurts a character, but that's literally why you have a whole bunch of different stages and a bunch of different strikes. The next stage I'll talk about is Callos. Callos is a stage roughly the size of FD, but with the biggest ledge to blast zone in the entire game. This can benefit characters that have a good recovery. This is one of the reasons why a character like Pikachu is so good on this stage. They have a great recovery, which they can use to the fullest extent because they're always going to recover better than their opponent, but then the walls also allow their neutral beast to go up the wall. This stage has a 192 ceiling, just like Battlefield, but it also has, very notably, 2 side platforms, which make it very good to evade the opponent, but also to do ledge mix-ups. Sometimes when you're playing in an Ultimate Online tournament, you might see Sonic or many other characters do timeout strategies, like Sonic can run away, or Zero Suit Samus can run away if they down B. However, I do want to mention that since online is minimum 4 or 5 frames additional input delay, even in the best case environment, and even more with a bad connection, I want to mention that running away from the opponent in an online environment is significantly more impactful than it is in an offline environment. It is much more difficult to reach the timeout win condition as your most optimal way of winning, as opposed to fighting in with punishing. In an offline environment, I don't think that timeouts are nearly as big of a factor offline as they are online, in my opinion. I was even one of the first people to bring up the idea of how broken timeouts could potentially be. However, timeouts in an online setting is not even close to the same as timeouts in an offline setting, and the stage can be abused online much more easily. So I do want to mention that information. I believe this stage should still be a counter pick for all the uniqueness that it offers. Next, I will talk about Small Battlefield. Even though the name is called Small Battlefield, it's actually exactly Battlefield, except the platforms are slightly more into the stage than Battlefields are, which it's not a significant amount, but just mentioning that detail, the 2 side platforms are actually a little bit more inward and a little bit further from the ledge on Small Battlefield. Also, the ceiling is tied for FD ceiling at 180. So this stage has quite a few differences from Battlefield, notably the ceiling height. If you want to pick a stage like Battlefield but don't want a top platform but you want to kill in the sky, then Small Battlefield might be the right option. There could be an argument that it's too similar to Pokemon Stadium 2 in that they both have the same 180 ceiling, and besides the platforms being a slightly different height and position, but not significantly, Pokemon Stadium 2 is just simply wider. I do not think that Small Battlefield and Pokemon Stadium 2 should coexist as both starters, so if they were both legal, they should definitely not both be starters for that reason, that they're basically the same type of thing. And if you like one stage, there's 99% of the time you also like the other stage in almost every situation. However, it is also a popular stage. It is one of the 3 stages on Elite Smash, and it seems to be accepted by the community. So even though I do have these concerns about it, I also believe that it could be accepted enough to be a counterpick. The last stage I will talk about in the counterpicks that I definitely think should be legal is Northern Cave. Northern Cave actually brings a lot of unique traits to the table. This stage could be considered similar to FD, except you're in a smaller box, and in addition to that, you have 2 side platforms. A very unique trait about this stage is that this stage actually has the smallest ceiling in the entire game at 177 units, as opposed to 180 units, which is normal. This usually allows you to get kills about 2% earlier. This is also on the side blast zones too, which is why I said that it's like FD in a smaller box. You can also kill slightly sooner on the side blast zones. The difference is not significant, but it is some unique traits which make it different from the other stages. In addition to that, you have 2 side platforms, similar to how Callos is set up, except the stage is a lot less campy by comparison. So you're basically fighting on an FD stage that isn't campy, but you can use platforms to extend combos, and you're in a small box that are going to die sooner. I believe this stage should definitely be legal. Now, some people have talked about that the stage could be distracting in the background, but in my personal opinion, it is very comparable to FD's background, and it is very, very, very less distracting by comparison to Smash 4's Final Destination, which was a legal stage in tournaments that I pretty much had to play on all the time. I believe that the Smash 4's FD by comparison was like 20 times worse, in my personal opinion, by comparison to this. If you want my honest opinion, I have not been distracted by the background of the stage. Or if I ever have, it's by a very insignificant amount. In my personal opinion, this should be legal as a counterpick stage. Now that I've mentioned the 10 stages that I believe should be legal at all tournaments, I'm going to go over the more controversial counterpicks, also known as the ain't even bad but everyone a complainer, that I called it on the thing I'll show soon. So, one of those stages is a stage that was actually legal at EVO 2019, as well as many other tournaments in 2019 before COVID. That stage is Yoshi Brawl. Yoshi Brawl is a very small stage, similar to like the size of like Smashville Yoshi's Story into like the main stage, like similar to that, but also a small that's the blast zone similar to like a Lyle or Town City. It also has a 180 size ceiling. However, one thing that a lot of people didn't like about this is that the stages have slants. And that's why I said, ain't even bad, but everybody a complainer. You see, everybody just sees a slant and they're like, oh no, a slant, it must be the devil. So I think this is really stupid, and I think that everybody's stupid, and that's just not really a good reason to just hate a stage and not want it legal. That's literally why you have counterpicks and have multiple strikes. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Speaking of the idea of everybody just hating slants, I'd also like to talk about Castle Siege. Now I understand that, besides WarioWare, this is probably the second most controversial stage I've ever had on a rule set. And I do understand the idea that the stage is uneven from the left and right side, and does have a slant that is notably bigger. The left and right being uneven surely could be a concern, however I still think the stage could be fine. It rewards interaction and up-close combat. This will make matches end quickly, and people just fighting the entire time. I actually pretty much think that this stage should be legal in a counterpick in some way. However, it seems that it's pretty unpopular overall, and if I have to accept that it shouldn't be legal, then I understand. At the end of the day, it's really up to the people to decide. I do want to mention in terms of stats though, this does have a slightly closer ledge to blast zone than a stage like Town City, and in terms of the ceiling, it's about the 180 size ceiling. Another stage that used to be legal in certain 2019 tournaments, but then was banned because Palutinas just didn't like when they could up B into the wall, and they didn't aim their up B well at all because they didn't want to practice it for 1 single minute. So therefore they bounce off the wall and then they die. And this stage is called Unova. This stage is basically Pokemon Stadium, but it's a much smaller stage by comparison. Like, it's not as wide on the main platform from left to right. The 2 side platforms are more spread apart and higher up, and the ceiling, if I'm not mistaken, is about 190, similar to Smashville, which means it's kind of like a smaller Pokemon Stadium where you can survive up smashes for longer. These are a bunch of unique traits to this stage, but people just didn't like teleporting off the wall, so they just wanted to ban it. And there's one stage, and now to talk about the stage that is more bad after thinking of it more, WarioWare. I used to think, okay, maybe this stage could be legal, and, since nobody wants to, take the courage to test things, I decided at the Frame Perfect Series tournaments, 1 through 6, I decided to legalize this stage. So overall, it wasn't as bad feedback as I thought. Actually, a lot of people actually did like it. However, I do understand that it is probably the single most controversial stage I've had, and people just don't want to like die into certain combos. And I do understand that certain characters like Rob could kill early of side B, Roy can kill early of side B. A lot of characters, the ledge to blast zone is just a little too small for their taste. I honestly think if this stage was modified to have a wider ledge to blast zone, even if it's not very significant, if it's just a small modification that Nintendo made, I still think there could be a strong case for having this turn legal. However, it could be considered too jank because if you want to have less variance in the match, you'd want at least just a little bit wider of the ledge to blast zone. So I totally understand that, and I gave it the test run, and if the stage isn't modified further, I have to just accept that that shouldn't be legal. Thanks for watching my video, guys. Please let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my stage list. And if you disagree with it, please let me know which stages you would remove and why. I personally believe, after studying this game very extensively, studying the numbers extensively, theorycraft, and a whole bunch of other things, and my experience, that I believe strongly this is the stage list we should be using. Let me know what you guys think. Also, before leaving, please like the video if you enjoyed it, of course. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon next to subscribe for more future videos so that you can stay up to date on the content. Also, click the YouTube description if you're interested in my coaching or other things that I might offer. Thanks for watching my video, guys. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video.